USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
Where I grew up was really here in Montauk. I went to high school here. I was president of the senior class of 1963. Yeah, my dad was in the Coast Guard. You know, I never even told him when I was 18, I joined the Marine Corps. And I came home and I said, Dad, I'm going to be going down to South Carolina. And he said, what the hell are you going to do in South Carolina? Well, Dad, I didn't tell you. I joined the Marines.
Meanwhile, in this jungle war, the United States is becoming more fully involved with each passing day.
So I landed in Vietnam on Christmas Eve of 1965. Christmas Eve, I'm sitting there, had to go on my first night patrol. They all assumed I had the rank of corporal, that I knew everything. I told them I knew everything, and I pretended to know everything. I just didn't know what to look for in the middle of the night in the jungles of Vietnam. So I said to the guys with me, say, if anything moves, shoot it. Shoot it twice.
And jungle fighting is a dangerous and frustrating affair. In the steaming jungle, you are always damp or wet, and you rarely see the enemy, but you feel him all around you.
You know, the Vietnam War is the war that's never going to end for anyone. Especially those who were there. You know, when I come home in 1967, everyone expected me to be the Johnny Behan that left. They expected me to be the same. You know, when I left to go to Vietnam, I was 6'2" and weighed 215 pounds. When I came home, I could only use a wheelchair, and I was about 4'10" and weighed 125 pounds. That was a big shock for me to accept.
With more troops committed to Vietnam by the U.S., forecasts are being made for an even stormier period ahead.
When I was wounded, the Marine Corps found out I had a brother in the Marine Corps. But when I got to the Philadelphia Naval Hospital, who was standing there with the school bus but my brother? I said, Jim, what the hell are you doing here? He said, well, I've been assigned to take you guys out for rides. So this is my transportation. I know it's a school bus, but it's the only thing they got, you know. So for the next few months, you know, I went to ball games and football games. We went to see something that was going on instead of spending the whole day in the hospital staring at the ceiling, you know. You know, not only did it blow my legs off, but my arms were full of shrapnel and my butt was full of shrapnel. I mean, some of the stuff was as big as a quarter of my head. I say, Doc, you gonna give me any pain relief here? He said, wow, you can feel that? I felt everything you did back there. It was like one of those deals when the doctor would come in, hey, son, you're doing pretty well, but we have to take a little bit more off your left leg. And I said, Doc, how much is a little more? And he went like that. Doc, that's not a little more to me. That's a goddamn a lot. You know, they were going to make me a pair of legs. They took the forms, and they sent me home on leave for 30 days. So for 30 days, I ate mom's cooking and probably gained 30 pounds being here, you know. Those legs, I couldn't even get my stump in that leg 2 inches, you know. So it came the day that I had to go before the executive board and show them my new legs and how I liked them. And so I opened the door, went in, and I threw my leg down on the floor in front of them and said, that's not a wooden leg that I could wear. It's not a wooden leg that anybody could wear. Having no legs, getting around. So that became a challenge to me. And I knew that I was going to accept that challenge. How good I was going to do at it, I just didn't know, and nobody could tell me. Because there weren't too many double amputees with their legs off above the knee that ever wanted to walk before. And whenever I went to the VA, I said, yeah, I want a pair of legs made that I could use. And they made my first pair of legs, and I could actually walk in. You know, they weren't perfect because they had all kinds of blisters and sores, and you know, because in those days they were actually a wooden leg. It wasn't like what they're making today. It wasn't about what I did in Vietnam. It wasn't about what happened to me in Vietnam. It was that I served in Vietnam. Not the proudest thing that I or anyone else who served there is most proud of, that when our country called, we answered. We didn't go to Canada or Mexico or get on a boat and go wherever. We answered our country's call. And damn, we were criticized for that for the next 8 to 10 years. But we didn't give a shit. We spoke about it. We knew we were going to see people burning the American flag. I said, how could that be in America? Well, people would burn the American flag in public, and people would be on the sidelines cheering them on. So where had this country gone? The VFW was the first guy to call me up. He invited me to become a member. And then I started to participate with them at all the events they had. And the first one was a Memorial Day parade. I showed up in my uniform. We all got into an open air Jeep and rode in the parade. And much to my liking, even the people on the side who were just out for the weekend were applauding us when we went by. After that event, the VFW guys took me down to the American Legion. When we walked in, stood up, and gave me a standing ovation.
But I want to thank John Gearing and the VFW, and I want to thank Bill Martin and the American Legion for carrying on this tradition in our hometown. We come from a country and a hometown where the word freedom really, really means something like no other place in the world. We have our freedom to do as we wish. We can pray, we can bank, we can use our religion, and we can use all of the recreations that are available to us as free as we wish to. And only an American can say that. But we also know by today that freedom is not free. America is still the greatest country in the world because of the sacrifice and the lives that other Americans have given so we could live free from sea to shining sea. God bless America, and thank you all for coming out today.
It was one December day when I was on the green that's right up the block here, selling Christmas trees with Marilyn on behalf of the Montauk Lions Club. And this fella came by and stopped his car, and his name was Eddie Ecker. And he said, "Hey, Johnny Behan, I want to get you involved." I said, "Involved in what?" I said, "No, in politics." I said, "Okay, that sounds good to me." So that's kind of how it started. For some crazy reason, Otis Pike, who was our congressman for 18 years, Perry Duryea, who was our assemblyman for 18 years, both decided to retire in the same year. So, yes, the assembly seat was vacant, but so was the congressional seat. So anybody who was anybody, you had 25 people trying to run for Congress, and you had me and a couple of people who wanted to run for the assembly. And I won. I went there in 1979 and retired in 1995. And I retired only because Governor George Pataki, a good friend of mine, wanted me to run his division of Veterans Affairs. But then when those 4 years were up, Marilyn and I spoke, and it was time to come home. I'm a Republican, and I was in the Assembly, and the Assembly is run by Democrats. And the Speaker at the time, his name was Stanley Fink. he and another Democratic assemblyman, they decided to send me back to Vietnam. We wanted to fight about the Amerasian children and POWs. Because we don't believe all our POWs were released to go home. So we went over there for 2 weeks. And we didn't have any trouble. You know, they knew we were Americans, and the people didn't bother. But I was able to go to the limb shop, where they make your legs and braces, you know. So I went into the limb shop, and there was 2 or 3 guys there with one leg trying to hop around. There wasn't anybody in there making legs. They had a half a dozen legs hanging from the ceiling. As I was standing in front of them talking, and I dropped my pants so they could see that I not only had one wooden leg, but I had 2. So I sat in a chair. They wanted to see the whole thing. I had to take my leg off and let them handle it and play with it. And they did that. These are kids that never met me before, never even thought about meeting an American in Hanoi. But that's how they were. They were very calm and pleasant and cheerful all the time that we were there. Don't ask me to defend the war. I can't imagine Congress or the Senate sending anybody to the kind of war they sent us to when they didn't know anything about it. Certainly we didn't know anything about it. Why we were there, what they were fighting for, and how, what a bitter enemy they could be. You know, and the mom would go, the dad would go, 2 or 3 kids would go. They were 7 or 8 years old to throw hand grenades. I mean, that to me was unbelievable when I found families like that. You know? And that's why I went back. I've been back to Vietnam twice. I never got a Bronze Star or a fucking pat on the back for the battle that I was in the day that I lost my legs. When my corpsman, my medical guy came to me on the ground, you know, they gave me every kind of pain pills and pins they had on them, you know, because they knew how bad I was. And both legs were off and my stomach was open. Nobody thought I was going to live, but I never looked at it, so I didn't think I was dying. But they got me on a helicopter, and because of the drugs they gave me, I was doing one of these jobs, rocking my head and closing my eyes, and all I could think about, how the hell, or what the hell, are they going to tell my mom? And he kept poking me. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. I said, hey, if I wake up, I'm going to kick your ass right out of this helicopter. And so I made a big impression on him to where a year ago, he came to visit me. Him and a friend of his, they drove up from Pittsburgh somewhere. And to Montauk Point, a place that they had never been before. And we spoke, we had a few laughs, we had lunch together, and he went back home. You know, but I talked to him occasionally because he's on Facebook, and so am I, you know. But that was a surprise to me that, you know, because I wasn't attached, and helicopter unit had a whole different attachment. You know, what helicopter guy would want to come back and see a guy he may have saved his life? Well, I found him, and I'm glad he came to see me. Coming back from the war, as I said, no piece of cake for anybody. Coming back to where you lived, and the people that you lived with, and different opinions about where you went, lasts a long, long time. But I think I and all the Vietnam veterans I know are quite proud that they served their country in Vietnam.